Hey, what's going on, everybody? Today we're going to look at whether or not now is actually a good time to buy a home. Now, my realtor friends might not like this video, but maybe they will. We'll have to wait and see how it turns out. So right now we are seeing historically low mortgage interest rates, but at the same time we're seeing extremely high purchase prices, almost back to the level when the market crashed back in 2008, maybe even at that level actually, or exceeding it. Now, I have been told by friends who are realtors and who know the real estate market very well that they don't think that we're going to see a repeat of 2008. And a big reason for that is because people just have a lot more equity in their homes right now than they did back then. And so if they come into a spot where they need to sell their home, the market is actually really good for selling homes right now, they would be able to get out of it before foreclosing, before the bank would foreclose on them. And so we're not going to probably see just this tidal wave of foreclosures like we did back then. And that's going to help keep purchase prices up. The values in your home is going to help stay high because of that. But let's look at the mathematical piece to this. We'll also talk a little bit about some other elements because we all know that the math isn't the only factor that we consider when we're making decisions. Well, let's take a typical home here in Orlando. Let's say a 2,800 square foot home here in Orlando might go for $425,000 right now. Now that's actually probably what the list price would be, and we're seeing some bidding wars in over half of the homes that are selling right now. So it could go for a little bit higher than that. But we'll take that. We'll take $425,000. That same home you might have been able to buy a couple of years ago for $385,000. And 4 years ago, you probably would have been able to buy that exact same home for $335,000. So we're going to look at those purchase prices with a couple of different interest rates. Right now, interest rates super low. You might get 2.5% interest. Paying $425,000 for that house, so I'm going to throw the numbers up here as well so you can see them as I walk through them. But paying $425,000 for that house, a 2.5% interest on your mortgage, over the life of that mortgage, if you did the normal 30 years that majority of people do, you would pay $604,000 for that house over 30 years. Now, if you had been able to get it a couple of years ago at $385,000, but say you had to pay 3.5% interest on your mortgage rate over the 30-year term of your mortgage, you would pay $622,000 for that house. So as you can see, the difference between that is about $18,000. So if you had had a higher interest rate but lower purchase price, you would actually spend more on the home. Now that only comes out to about $600 a year, so it's not a huge deal. But at the same time, you're sitting there going, wow, I paid $18,000 more for this house. That's, what's that? That's almost, it's 2 or 3% more that you paid for that home. Now let's go back 4 years and say you could have gotten the house for $335,000, and maybe at that point in time you would have gotten 4.25% interest on your mortgage rate. You would only pay $593,000 over a 30-year mortgage for that house total. And so you can see that the difference between that and the 385 number at 3.5% interest is about $30,000. So that's a pretty big deal. The difference between that and right now, the $425,000 purchase price and 2.5% interest, what's that? That'd be about $11,000 difference. So, but you can see that as that purchase price goes down, even though the mortgage rate goes up, in one example, we can see that it kind of depends, right? How much, it's the relationship, of course, between those two things, just like any math problem, but how much is the purchase price down and how much is the interest rate up, and where's the tipping point? And so part of this is no one has a crystal ball, so no one knows where interest rates are going to go tomorrow, much less 6 months to 12 months from now. We also don't know where purchase prices are going to go either. Are they going to stabilize? Are they going to keep climbing? Everyone thinks that interest rates pretty much are going to go up, but if interest rates going up drives the price down a little bit, then we would see, again, in this example, 2.5%, $425, you're going to pay $604 over the lifetime. If interest rates go up a little bit, so let's say they go up to 3.5% sometime between now and next year. If they climb that high, and I think they're already starting to climb, but the purchase price starts to go down because, hey, as interest rates go up, homes become less affordable. That's going to cause people to sell them maybe for a little bit less. Maybe it'll just hold steady. at where it is. It might not even drive down. It's probably not going to drive a $425,000 house all the way back down to $385,000. I doubt that's going to happen. But let's say it did. That's actually going to cost you more over the long term with a little bit higher interest rate and a much lower. I mean, that's 25 plus 15. That's a $40,000. That's a 10% difference in the purchase price. $40,000. But you're still paying more over the 30-year mortgage because of the higher interest rate. So, hey, look, it looks like maybe my realtor friends won't be too mad at me, because I think what I'm saying is it's better to go ahead and purchase now with the interest rate being super, super low. Now, again, we had that third example where if the interest rate went up to 4.25, but the purchase price was all the way back down to the level it was 4 years ago at $335,000, you're only going to pay $593,000 over the life of that 30-year mortgage for that home, and that's actually a better situation. But I don't think that there's any way we're going back to 4 years ago in terms of the value on the homes. Going from $425,000 all the way back down to $335,000, that would be a pretty significant, I don't know if it would be a crash, but that would be a pretty significant downturn in terms of the value of homes right now. And I'm not a realtor, I'm not specializing in that area, but I just find it really hard to believe that the values are going to drop that significantly over the next 6, 12, 24 months, 36 months, because that would probably mean a really big flood of foreclosures hitting the market to get the prices to go down that low. So all that to say, I think now might be a really good time to buy so that you can take advantage of that lower interest rate. A couple of other things. Right now, if you're selling a home and moving into another home, then you're pretty much going to wash, because the value of your house is significantly up and you're going to pay a lot more than maybe what you had planned to a year or two ago for that new house. But because your value is also up, moving houses is pretty much a swap. Now, of course, if you're in a cheaper home and you're upgrading or moving up to a more expensive home, well, a 10% increase in the value of your home at $300,000 would only be $30,000, and a 10% increase in the value of the home that you're looking at, say a $400,000 home, would be $40,000. So, of course, the increase in that home you're moving into is going to have been more than what you saw, but it really mitigates the fact that values are up right now because you have a home that you're selling that is also up more than you would have expected it to be. If you are selling a home and not buying another home, now is absolutely the perfect time. Now, I don't know what the rental market looks like, and of course, you probably would have to go rent something in that space. But if that's your plan, if you're planning on selling something and moving out of the country or moving overseas or going somewhere temporarily and you're doing that anyway, now is definitely the time to sell a home if you don't have to turn around and buy another one, because you can just pocket all that extra appreciation in your home right now. If you're a new home buyer and you're looking to purchase a house for the first time, that's really the toughest spot to be in, because the value of the homes have gone up significantly, but you haven't benefited from that increase because you don't already currently own a home. And so you might have been saving for a 10% down payment on a $350,000 home that's now going for $400,000. And that's a lot more money that you have to come up with. And so that's a really tough spot to be in. Again, no one has a crystal ball. Would it be better to wait for values to kind of settle out? Maybe they're going to come back down. Should you wait for another downturn in the market before you buy? Should you jump now because prices are just going to keep going up? No one really can answer that question for you. The way that I do this is I basically make the decision based on the facts that I have now at the time. So what I'm going to say here, I think is critically important. People will second guess their decisions all the time. When we bought the home we're in now, we moved on it very quickly. It was about 4 years ago. We moved on it really quickly. It had only been on the market 2 days. The market wasn't anything like it is now, but it's still, houses were moving pretty quick. And we thought, after we bought the house, I said, maybe if we hadn't moved so quick, they would have been more willing to negotiate a lower price. Maybe if we had been a little bit harder or tougher in the negotiations, we could have gotten a little bit better price. But, I thought about, well, what would we have gotten? Let's say we would have gotten it $10,000 less. Okay, that's $10,000, which is a significant amount of money. But by the time you spread it out over 20 or 30-year mortgage, it's not that much per month. And really, even more important than that, I would say is, was the house worth it to me at the time, what we paid for it? Obviously it was, because we paid that for it and we made the decision to do it. So if the market turned down 6 or 12 months later, I wouldn't be kicking myself saying, oh man, if only we had waited. Because no one knows the future. No one has a crystal ball. You have to make a good decision based on the information that you have today. And so if you think that the house is worth what it's going for, and you can afford it, and you say, this is the home we want, we can afford it, and we think that it's worth that, don't kick yourself 6, 12, 24, 36 months from now if the market dips a little bit. If it was worth it to you, it was worth it to you. Now, again, with that as well, I would highly recommend that you have a good amount of equity in the home so that you don't end up in a situation where you're financially strapped, or you're going to have to be forced to sell the home because you can't afford it anymore, or the market dips down and you just don't have any equity in it anymore, because that can really put you in a tough financial position. So make sure that you cover your basis there by having a good amount of equity in the home. But don't second guess your decisions when new information comes later, because you didn't know that at the time. You couldn't have known that. No one could have known that. And you're just going to have a much happier life if you don't second guess yourself based on new information that you didn't have at the time. That's not fair to you. It's not fair to your year ago self when they made that decision. And so don't do that. My name is Brad. I'm with Wooten CPA. I'm here to bring peace to your finance and tax responsibilities. One of the ways I do that is through the YouTube videos. Please subscribe to the channel, like this video, hit the bell so you're notified when new videos come out. Thanks for watching.